Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're tuning into this very significant episode of Tailgate Trash Talk after this crazy weekend. Bentley, how you feeling after a wild weekend, man?
It's weeks like these I like to put in perspective that my boy Diego Pavia received the same number of college scholarships offers to play football as I did when I graduated high school. So, I still have eligibility left. I'm thinking maybe one day I can carry, the field goal post down Broadway. That'd be pretty cool. Never say never, kids.
Especially in the city of Nashville, man.
Yeah, like
Woo! Yeah, there's that, and then you can talk like Josh Allen received the same number of Division One scholarships as you and I did as well. So
yeah.
there's hope. There's hope still.
Diego did receive a scholarship offer to wrestle at Nebraska though.
Yeah,
So it's just the quarterback thing that got him.
yeah. He showed his toughness this weekend. That's for sure.
People forget state champion wrestler in high school.
Yep. Yep.
I don't forget. We don't forget. Gary, you and
No.
I don't forget.
We don't. You're right. So we come out the gates, and I'll tell you, man, going into this weekend, this game against Michigan State made me realize like maybe Oregon's not up to the Big Ten challenge because that offense still looks like it's kind of stuck in mud for large stretches of the game. And Michigan State is not exactly a powerhouse in the Big Ten. Now, I know Michigan's down this year. Penn State still has James Franklin coaching, but Ohio State feels like they're the class of the Big Ten, and I don't know that Oregon's very close. Talk me off that ledge, bud, because we've got a huge weekend coming up. October 12th, we talked about it before the season even started, that this had so many great matchups. We've got Red River, we've got Oregon, Ohio State, the big matchup. We've got a number of big games this weekend, but this one, I don't know how big it feels anymore the way Oregon's been playing. So talk me into this. Tell me Michigan State's better than I think they are, or something.
Well, you said it yourself last week. They're feisty, right? Or zesty, whatever the word you used was, and I
Yeah.
agreed with you. I don't think Michigan State is terrible. They're obviously not like a really good team, but
Yeah.
they're not terrible. And Oregon, I do kind of feel we talk about it all the time, right? Look ahead spots, trap games, stuff like that. Not to mention, this was a Friday night game. Friday night games in college football are weird. Every
Weird
single
stuff on
year,
Friday nights.
yeah, like every single week. I have no worries about Oregon. I think they're still probably the second best team in the Big Ten. You could talk me into the third. You could talk me into the fourth, potentially. No lower than that, though. I mean, Oregon is still very good. I believe in Dan Lanning. We're going to talk about the Red River game. I mean, we all saw what Dylan Gabriel did in that game last year against the national championship runner-up.
Yep.
Or excuse me, I guess the third place team.
Semifinal.
But yeah, right. Like Oregon's fine. Jordan James is an incredible running back. Tez Johnson's a wonderful wide receiver. Dylan Gabriel is very good. Their offensive line is very stout. Like Oregon's fine. Trust me.
Okay. I'm back on board.
Man, that's all it takes, huh?
Yeah. And we had a mild upset, if you want to call it that. I mentioned last week that Cuse had an opportunity to get 2 top 25 wins under their belt against 2 teams that I'll be honest, right? Neither Georgia Tech nor UNLV should have been top 25 teams, right? Maybe you could make a case for UNLV because they're undefeated after 5 weeks, whatever. But they've had a couple of like guys not transfer out, but like basically pull out and say, I want my red shirt. I'm going to transfer out anyway. So I'll take it though, right? We talked about it after the Georgia Tech win. You asked me the question, do you still consider it a top 25 win? You're goddamn right I do, because Cuse doesn't get many top 25 wins to begin with. I'm going to take them all when I can. So, listen, it's 2 top 25 wins on their resume. They still only have 1 loss on the season. They're going to have to steal one against Miami or Clemson to have a shot at the playoff. But I think if they can steal one of those, even with 2 losses, I think they can get into the playoff, especially if they go on to win the ACC championship, which I'm not real confident they would. But listen, two top 25 wins on the resume. That's going to be on the CFP committee's mind. So I'm going to take them while I can.
As a fan of a team that also doesn't get many top 25 wins, I agree with you. Take them where you can get them.
Take them while you can.
Yeah.
Penn State, UCLA. I took the points with UCLA because I think they're a tough team. I think they're kind of scrappy. Penn State is still Penn State with James Franklin. I do think that the talent disparity is a lot, and I see why you laid the 28. I also thought about halfway through the third quarter I was going to lose this one because it looked like Penn State was going to boat race them, and then Penn State kind of went into a shell and protected my spread. So I'll take it. Mizzou, Texas A&M. Texas A&M showed their teeth. Mizzou, boy, I expect them to come back, but Brady Cook did not look good against this Texas A&M defense. Talk to me a little bit about this, because this was an upset by rankings, right? Vegas had A&M a 2.5-point favorite, but Mizzou's a top 10 team, and this is one of the big losses of the weekend. I talked about it to open the show. We had an exciting weekend. There was a lot of action. This is a big one because this was a boat race. They dump trucked Mizzou, and we've talked about the Texas A&M front four especially. They are scary, and we saw it against Mizzou.
Yeah, this game was over before I even left for the wedding Saturday afternoon. And I'm saying that as a man who placed a wager on Missouri money line. That I texted. So I have a group chat with a bunch of my friends, and they're all gamblers, right? And I posted my ticket for the money line, and A&M went up 7, and I think they forced a turnover and scored off the turnover. And I said, man, this one might be over already. It was
right you were.
Yeah. Oh god, dude. Yeah. It was just a bad game by Missouri, right? For the very same reason I picked A&M week 0 or I get the Notre Dame game, right?
Yeah.
The home field advantage of Kyle Field, whether it's a day game like this one or whether it's a night game at Kyle Field, that's a tough place to play. It's huge. They have 100,000 people
down there.
Yeah, I mean, there were 97,000 people at this game. I mean, that's crazy. That's a lot of fucking people. And Missouri just the wheels fell off early, right? And it's tough. You mentioned the A&M defensive front. They're very good. I know there's been a lot of talent that left out of there, but they're still incredibly talented on that defensive side of the ball. And if you get down to them early, it's tough to get back into that game. And I kind of felt that Missouri was pushing on offense a little bit. I didn't feel as though they were playing like within a script, right? It was kind of like, hey, Brady, we need something. Go do anything, and it just wasn't working, right? I kind of lauded the coaching ability of Drinkwitz last week going into this game, and I still think he's a very good coach, but Mike Elko just kind of put him in a blender and put on a coaching clinic, right? Like he kept the pressure up. He didn't allow Missouri to get back in this game, and it doesn't really deter me from thinking that Missouri is a good team. I think if they want to make the playoff, they have to get to at least the SEC championship game, though, which would mean winning out the rest of the way, except for that title game. Because this is an ugly loss from Missouri, and the committee will remember that, especially with it being, I guess this is technically the halfway point of the regular season so far.
Yeah.
So it's not like an early loss.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that it changes my impression of Mizzou a ton. The ice slanted on them, man. Sometimes the roof just caves in. Whatever cliche you want to use.
Yep.
That's what happened this weekend for Mizzou. On the road, tough environment. You mentioned it, 97,000 people in the building. That's a wild number to even think. College stadiums are so crazy. Like the Big House has 114, and like the Horseshoe has like 98, and there's just so many you can pack fans in. It can get crazy. And I'm with you. I think they were pressing. I think Mizzou early in the game, like Mike Tyson said it, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mizzou did not adjust well to what Texas A&M did to them early, and you mentioned it. They kept the pressure up. They were clicking on both sides of the ball, and it really just the ice was so slanted against Mizzou in this game. I expect them to be just fine the rest of the way. It is going to be tough to win out because if I looked at their schedule at the beginning of the season, in order for them to be a playoff team, this was a game I thought they would win. But that doesn't mean I don't think they can win one of the ones I had them losing down the stretch because I still think they're a good team. I like Brady Cook. You mentioned it, Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's done a fantastic job there in the other Columbia. And I think that they're still a good team, but man, did A&M have their fucking number this weekend? Holy shit! And Connor Wegman looked good. I talked about it last week that I thought Malik Bell, I think is his name, or Marcel Reed. I keep mixing his damn name up. I did it last week too. Marcel Reed. I thought he looked competent the week before, so I was like, maybe they'll be okay as long as the defense plays well. And then Wegman ended up playing and looked the best he's looked all year. So maybe they got a little something going there in A&M. But yeah, I think you're spot on. That it doesn't deter me from thinking that the Tigers could be a playoff team.
That game was as bad of a beatdown as you'll ever see because A&M had 250 more yards of offense, and Mizzou didn't turn the ball over once. Like they just had nothing going. No. Like that's usually in a game like that where there's that much disparity in the offense.
Turnovers,
yeah, like
bad bounces.
It just wasn't. They had nothing going on offense.
Yep, for sure. SMU Louisville, we both had SMU +7. I talked about it during the game. I wish I'd have laid a SMU money line ticket on this because they've got this 2-quarterback thing figured out. I don't love 2-quarterback systems. I've been very vocal about it on the show. You have 2, you have none. Since Tebow and Leak, and really Tebow was kind of an anomaly because they brought him in for very specific situations during that season. You can't really point to a situation where like 2 quarterbacks really thrived, even in college football. At least I don't remember. Maybe there is one here or there, but SMU's got it figured out, man. They are clicking on offense. They beat up a ranked Louisville team here. Their first year in the ACC looks like they're going to be able to compete in this bigger conference after leaving with a championship and waving on their way out the door. They come to the ACC and they look like they're going to be able to compete, man.
Yeah, they're playing very well. I think the key to them winning is running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They ran for 190 yards against Louisville, outgained them by 60 yards to the ground. Like running the ball still matters in college football. You mentioned the 2-quarterback thing. Yeah, they do it. It works. I don't love it. They don't do it a ton, which I think is good. They got Jennings who they like. But yeah, it's cool to see SMU. Great uniforms. Love the SMU kit. It's classic, right? You get a little nostalgic when you see the SMU uniforms out there. I know they're not the same as like the old ones, but regardless,
yeah.
It's cool to see SMU thriving in the new conference. It reminds me a little bit of like college basketball last year when Houston went from the American to the Big 12 and then instantly won it in year 1.
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly apples to apples, but like it kind of gives me the same vibe as that, and I think it's pretty cool. It's one of the few wins for conference realignment that we have like early on is SMU being good in the ACC.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and you mentioned it. I know early in the season it was more like a 60-40 timeshare, I think, early in the season with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think Jennings, I watched him this game. I think they should just stick with him. Like,
yeah,
he looked like he's the playmaker on that offense. So I wouldn't be surprised as we get far. I look when JJ McCarthy and Shea, what's that?
Alex Orji?
No, Shea.
Fuck. Oh, the kid who went to
Iowa.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But that thing ended up ironing itself out as the season went on. I think SMU's going to have a very similar situation here where I think by the end of the season, it's Jennings. It feels like it's already Jennings' team, but it might officially be Jennings' team. And we'll see. It's what Preston Stone, I think, is the backup.
Yep.
And he'll be in a true backup role. Ohio State, Iowa, ho-hum. Ohio State takes care of business. Iowa still can't score points. I think they ended up with a touchdown late and whatever. Georgia, Auburn. Auburn was a little bit feisty here against Georgia. They're not gonna pull through for my dark horse prediction to start the season, but they gave Georgia a little business here. We both missed this on the spread. Ole Miss, South Carolina. We talked about this.
We don't have to talk about this. We can keep going.
This feels a little bit like Mizzou, though, right? Like the roof kind of caved in early, And I don't know that South Carolina recovered, and Ole Miss was a little bit pissed off from the week before. And we're going to talk about that again here in a minute. Somehow South Carolina keeps absorbing punishment after SEC teams lose bad games.
Should I do it now, or should we wait for the Alabama game? Wait, it's because I have positives and I have negatives. I have a lot more negatives than I do positives, but we'll save it.
We'll save it.
Yeah,
we'll save it. Save your energy.
Oh, God damn it.
Indiana, Northwestern, we actually talked about this a little bit too, that Indiana kind of had like an exodus. They lost their coach and they lost a bit of talent, but fuck, they look pretty good, man. They can score some points, and I know it's Northwestern, but don't look now. I mean, Indiana, what are they ranked now? They moved up to
20,
now I gotta fucking find it.
They're 18.
18. So they're top 20 team. Like, we're talking about Indiana football, right?
Number one in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Relevant Indiana football on October 10th. Who had that on their bingo card this year?
Everyone in Harrisonburg, Virginia did. I'll tell you that.
The big one, man. The big one.
Yep.
So you took the points with Vandy.
Yep.
I laid the points with Bama. I was so fucking wrong. My big takeaway from this, and I'm gonna get mine out of the way so that you can have your space to talk about your boy. I thought the biggest surprise, the biggest thing that I took away from this game was, like, when we see these upsets, we usually see like Bama would have turned the ball over 4 times. Bama would have had stupid penalties on like a 3rd down, or missed tackles here and just a bad balance there. But dude, I messaged you at one point during this game, and I messaged my other group chat during the game, like, Vanderbilt bullied Alabama in this game. It was not a fluke upset. I don't know that Vandy's going to be able to keep this steam up, because as we talked about before the show, they're big dogs again this week, but they bullied Alabama. They were not afraid. And the guy you're going to fucking take your bow about in a moment, he just completely befuddled the Alabama defense all day, making the right decisions, whether it was running the ball or throwing the ball. And they showed that they've got a couple of playmakers there. And even defensively, like early, they were really stifling this Alabama offense. Now, Bama got it rolling because Bama's got all the talent in the world. But Vandy didn't fold in the big moment. And that was my big takeaway, is like they played the big boy, and they didn't shy away, and they bullied him for a fucking large portion of this game. It was unbelievable to watch. The floor's yours, homie.
Well, first off, welcome to the SEC, Kalen DeBoer. I understand that you already played the Georgia game. I get it. The difference between playing in what was the Pac-12 and now is the SEC is that let's compare the Georgia Bama game to an Oregon Washington game. Got it? Cool. The next week in the Pac-12, you would play UCLA. This week in the SEC, you get to go to Nashville and play my boy Diego Pavia and those Vanderbilt Commodores, who, as you and I both have stated multiple times, are not pushovers in this league right now. They are not. And a lot of that we'll see next year. But a lot of that has to do with one Diego Pavia coming from New Mexico State, along with a wide receiver and the offensive coordinator. And there's people out there that are like, yeah, man, why? After this game specifically, I saw a lot of it online. I also saw some weird like dress code discourse about Kalen DeBoer wearing a t-shirt. They're like, oh, Saban would never have done. As a staunch advocate for dressing down in all scenarios, who fucking cares what your coach is wearing on the sideline? Is it the Charlotte head coach, the big dude that wears like cutoffs? He also is like cut the V down to his nipple. Who gives a fuck what you wear on the sideline? Right. First off, but secondly, right? So Diego Pavia coming over. You mentioned it. Vandy stood up to the big boy. They stepped to the middle of the ring with Alabama and said, hey, we're going to hold the ball for 42 minutes because the 7 best players on the Alabama roster all play on the offense. So what's the way to combat that? Hold on to the ball. Don't turn the ball over and make smart, confident, gutsy calls. You saw it with the 4th and 1 play where he throws that long touchdown. those are things that a confident quarterback playing in a system that he knows with guys around him that he trusts, that's what they do. You see games. I relate everything to the teams I root for. The LSU South Carolina game, when Robbie Ashford came into the game, South Carolina went into a shell on offense. They were in a battle with a top 25 team and it's just withered away in the second half. Diego Pavia does not do that. He's not scared of a motherfucking thing out on there in that football field. That man will run between the tackles. He will run off tackle. He will throw the ball down the field. He throws with anticipation. I get that he's not the most talented guy. I get that he's not going to go to the NFL and do like crazy things. Shout out Spencer Rattler, who's going to be incredible this weekend, starting for the Saints. But he is. We see it year in and year out. There are perfect college quarterbacks. Cam Rising, a great example, right? Like Cam Rising is a wonderful college quarterback. Now he hasn't played in a while, but like Diego Pavia has launched himself into that stratosphere now, right? You and I were on this show telling people about him at New Mexico State last year playing in the MAC. And we came into the year, and I said week 0 on the show, I said, my boy Diego Pavia starting in the SEC this year, watch out for them. And now they beat Alabama, and people realize that Vanderbilt has a quarterback. They have an offense that they trust, and they're not pushovers on defense. Like they were controlling the line of scrimmage against an Alabama team who, by the way, I thought this was an interesting fact. The offensive play calling in Alabama, they ran the ball on consecutive plays 4 times that game. And twice it went for touchdowns. Like, that's another adjustment that Kalen DeBoer has to make when he comes to the SEC, right? Not everything is you run the ball, you get to yards, fuck it, spread them out 4 wide, let Jalen Milroe do his thing. You have to establish yourself on the line of scrimmage in the SEC. That's how the game is played. And Alabama didn't do that. And they lost in a fucking dogfight, dude. I mean, they gave up 40 to a Vanderbilt team who was not scared whatsoever. I was immensely impressed when I watched that game back because, I was doing wedding activities. But I did watch the game back. I watched the whole thing.
Oh, I think we got some technical difficulties. But
he's back. Here we go.
Oh, there you are. All right.
I have to say, I'm so happy for everyone in Nashville. It was awesome to see it. They tore down the goalposts and walked them 2 miles and tossed them in the river. It was incredible. Vandy, hats off to y'all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the big thing, too, is like who holds the ball for 42 minutes against Bama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like who does that? Congrats to Vandy. Hats off. Diego Pavia, he's getting his run. He was on Dan Patrick. I know he's been on a couple other shows, but I caught him on Dan Patrick. He was really good, too, in front of the mic. And you mentioned state champion wrestler. He fucking still looks like a wrestler. Too.
Oh yeah,
he's got no neck. His shoulders are bowed up. Like that dude looks like a wrestler still.
He probably has cauliflower ear. If I had to guess. Let me see if I can find a picture of that. He
somewhere
has
under the helmet. I'm sure there's at least a little cauliflower ear there.
Got to.
All right, onward, upward. Clemson's offense continues to play well. Florida State continues to look like a dumpster fire. I can't imagine Norvell is long for Tallahassee. I have to believe we'll take a quick aside on this one. This wasn't one of the upsets of the weekend that we're going to highlight, but I have to believe Florida State's going to go after Prime, right?
Can we wait till they play the gauntlet of the schedule they have coming up in the second half of the year before we decide that? Like
Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado.
Sure, but Florida State's got to make a splash, right? Maybe they're not capable of making that splash.
I don't know that they have the money.
That might be right.
So here's why I say
they already are. What they're gonna have to foot the bill for? It's like $70 million to get out of the ACC or something.
Exactly right. It's more than that. It's over 100, right? So that I don't know if they have the capital to pay the fee to get out of the ACC as well as paying a dead coach, right? Ooh, Cowboys. Cowboys. So I don't know that they have the capital to pay the coach to leave as well as paying to leave the ACC. I also think that this might just be the year from hell for Florida State, and they stick with Norvell and trust what he's done because he had that team undefeated going into the ACC championship game just last year, and then all of that madness happened. and now they suck, right? They lost a lot of guys in the NFL. They lost quarterback. They tried it with DJ, who I don't think any of us really trusted, except for me, who bet on them in the first 2 weeks. So, like, I think they probably stick it out with Norvell. I also don't think this team is as bad as they're playing. We talked about the wheels coming off early for Missouri. I think the wheels came off early, like
For the
on the
season?
season. Yeah, for Florida State. Norvell has turned them around in the past. I don't understand. Like, I don't think they should move on from him yet.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Boise, Utah State. Ashton Jeanty gets 30 more minutes off. He's unreal, dude. I saw the stat today. The top 5 Mountain West rushers right now are Ashton Jeanty with over 1,000 yards through 5 games. Number 2 is Ashton Jeanty after contact with over 650 yards after contact. Unreal. And then it's 3 other guys in the Mountain West. He's unbelievable. Boise State's going to be tough. They may end up being the playoff team from the group of 5. It wouldn't have surprised me to start the season, but man, they look better than I thought they would.
Yeah.
Jeanty was a guy you were on him super early. Like, I knew of him and I knew like he's got some explosiveness to him. Holy fuck, dude. If he ain't Damian Tomlinson, I don't know who is, right? Like, he looks unbelievable, and it's the Mountain West connection, right? Because TCU was still in the Mountain West when LaDainian Tomlinson was at TCU. Holy cow, he is unbelievable. He had 2 touchdowns over 60 yards last week in the first half.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah, his perch touch was the 63-yard touchdown, which was not even his longest touchdown of the night.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 183 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then they were like, "Hey, bud, take a seat.
Go get a Gatorade."
which is smart because late in the year last year he kind of broke down and was injured a little bit. So it's good that he's getting these second halves off.
Yeah, for sure. Give him as many as you can give him.
Yeah, rest all the way to New York, bud.
Yeah, for sure. And then another one of those upsets I mentioned at the top of the show. Tennessee goes down to the hands of Arkansas. Sam and Bobby got something going on there, huh?
Yep.
They're playing tough. They are absolutely a kind of blue collar team, but Bobby Petrino's got that offense humming a bit. Tennessee wasn't ready. This was a pretty, I mean, obviously being a 2 touchdown favorite to start the game and then losing the way that they did. What a wake up call for Tennessee. Like, you ain't gonna be able to cruise until you get to the big boys. Arkansas is here to play.
Yeah, that was it. Credit to Arkansas. I knew Arkansas was good. I didn't know they were I knew they were going to be better coming into this year than they were last year, right? I knew that for sure. I didn't know that they were going to be as competitive as they are, right? The Oklahoma State game, losing their quarterback late in that game, or their running back late in that game, rather, and still grinding it out in overtime. Lost, but whatever. And then to come and beat a Tennessee team with your backup quarterback, like, that's credit to them. You know, Nico Iamaleava has not had like the breakout game that his $7 million NIL deal would lead you to expect him to have, right? I think they were still averaging like 40 points a game coming into this game. So like, you would expect more than, what do they score? 14 points, right? So it's like, this was another one of those games where there were no turnovers. It was just Arkansas beating them up, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think that Tennessee will be fine, but they need to get Nico in that development fast track, right? Yeah. I understand that their defense is still good. They have one of the best defensive lines in the country, you know, probably the second best defensive line in the SEC. But you still got to score points when you get in these dogfights.
He ain't gonna cut it, man.
Yeah, and really just the cherry on top, the bow that tied it all together was Nico running out of bounds in the last play of the game. Like, you gotta. That's a freshman mistake. Now I get that Malik Hooker did it 3 years ago as not a freshman, but like, that's a freshman mistake. You have to understand that you cross the line of scrimmage and run out of bounds, the game's over.
Yeah,
because the clock doesn't stop when your momentum's going forward.
Yep.
You have to either, and we talked about this on Tuesday, right? Like, you have to throw a quick hitter and do like the hook and lateral, hope you get to the end zone, or you have to let the play go. Exactly. You have to throw the ball into the checkers.
Yep.
And that didn't happen, and they lost. I mean, they lost to a team that played better than them, and that's what college football is, man. This is
Yep.
a weekend like this. I think is the byproduct of the NIL and transfer eras combining, right? We saw it's like with Alabama, we see it with Tennessee here, like the depth of these teams, because this is historically a game where like I understand that Sampson is a phenomenal running back for Tennessee, but they would have like 3 of them, right? And they just bring in fresh legs, and they just lean on Arkansas and they win the game, and it might be close or whatever, right? But and then same with with Alabama, like one defensive back makes a mistake, you bring in another 5-star guy, whatever. That doesn't happen really anymore. Like, I mean, Ohio State is extremely deep, but they're kind of the outlier. I think it will catch up to them at some point. But like we see these teams that just don't have the depth, specifically at the top of college
Don't
football.
wait anymore, man. 5 and 4 stars. They don't want to sit. They don't want to wait. They don't want. They're on to the next thing. Who's going to pay me, or who's going to let me play, or both? Right?
Yep.
You're absolutely right. I think that is why I like that the NCAA is starting to pull back on the transfer portal, but it's also why I think we need to pull back more on the transfer portal. It's just different in college football. And I understand like, we should let the players have freedom of movement. Coaches have freedom. Yeah, players have freedom of movement when coaches move as well under the old rules. So like, I think we're going to eventually get to the point where these guys are signing contracts, right? It's just going to be, you're signing a 3-year contract, a 4-year contract. And if you breach it, you blah, 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 just like any other sport. But it is frustrating. I know, to see how many kids are in the transfer portal every year. But I think you're absolutely right? Like a Kyle McCord would never play at Syracuse under the old transfer rules, right? Like he just wouldn't, because he's not going to go to Syracuse to sit out a year because he transferred and then play. And we just don't see that. Yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating.
It is. But we get weekends like this one where there's big upsets. And that I think is what the NCAA envisioned when they opened up the transfer portal like that.
Yeah. Sharing the wealth of talent, for sure. Michigan, Washington, and just a shitty game if you sat through this one. I had it kind of off to the side a little bit, but only because it was in a window that there weren't a whole lot of games going on at the same time. Michigan is in big trouble. I thought coming into the season that they would be in trouble, but not like this. They legitimately don't have anybody on that roster that can even attempt to play the quarterback position. It's so bad. And they're not running the ball with the amount of success that they would need to overcome that. And Washington just beat them up on the West Coast.
See, I get that Michigan's in trouble. But the comment about the quarterback, I think a little bit differently about that after this game.
Okay.
So Jack Tuttle played in this game.
Okay.
Jack Tuttle was a guy who was brought in to compete with JJ McCarthy last year and then was hurt and missed the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And now I guess he's healthy. I don't know why he wasn't healthy at the beginning of the year. I haven't done all that much research on the Michigan quarterback room other than I know they suck.
Yeah.
But if Jack Tuttle is able to come in and be a passable quarterback, right, as a 6th-year guy, Michigan might be okay. Now,
let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Is 10 for 18 for 98 yards, a tug, and a pick passable at quarterback?
For your first game in a year and a half, maybe? I don't like. It's better than Alex Orji.
It is. I will give you that 100%. You're absolutely right about that. It is better than what Orji was fucking putting out there.
It's better than anything else they got in that quarterback room.
Okay, that's the best they got. We'll go with that.
I still don't envision them making they'll make a bowl game. They're not going to make the playoff.
Yeah.
They're not going to beat Ohio State.
No. They're probably going to be a 4-loss team this year. Maybe 5. But that's still, they're going to get into a decent bowl because it's the brand and people want Michigan in their bowl game. Minnesota, welcome to the Big Ten, Southern Cal. And we've talked about this a little bit, right? The clash of styles. Southern Cal had it against Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin's kind of changed their offensive approach. We've seen Oregon play maybe a little more sluggish than we would expect. and UCLA is rebuilding after losing. One comment, Gus Johnson, can you fucking stop? He called Eric Bieniemy a fucking prodigal offensive mind like 50 times this weekend. The dude sucks. UCLA's offense looks like shit, worse than Washington's offense looked last year with Eric Bieniemy at the helm. The dude sucks. So fucking stop trying to force feed that narrative. However, back to USC, or not the real USC, Southern Cal against Minnesota. You and I both took the points with Minnesota. I didn't expect Minnesota to win, but I thought we were going to see like a 24-20 or something along those lines. 8 points was enough for me to take them. Minnesota wins outright. Welcome to the Big Ten, because they bullied them. They played in the trenches and took control of this game, and big win for Minnesota, man.
If I told you, what is this, year 3 for Lincoln Riley? Yeah. So if I told you 2.5 years ago, whatever, when he left, that in his 3rd season there, we would be saying that the offense is the problem for the Trojans,
I'd have called you a madman.
Yeah, like how hard would you have slapped me? I don't like, because that defense is not bad. That defense is not bad, even without Perry Alexander, like transferring or redshirting. I guess that defense is still not awful. I thought the story of this game was team tackling from Minnesota, because you mentioned Jack Tuttle going 10 for 18 for 98 or whatever. Miller Moss completed 23 passes and had 200 passing yards.
Yeah.
That is a sign of gang tackling.
Yep.
Because we know that Southern Cal has the playmakers to make guys miss, to break tackles, to get explosive plays. That doesn't happen when defenses rally to the ball, right? Yep. They also don't throw the ball down the field a whole lot. That was kind of a Caleb Williams thing. Yeah. But Miller Moss, tough, bud. Tough. Good win against LSU, though.
I have the same question after this game that I've had about Miller Moss all year. Like, I don't know what he brings to that offense. I think he's probably fine. He's probably exactly what his stat line was this weekend, 23 for 38 for a couple hundred yards and a touchdown. Like, that feels like Miller Moss on a normal day, and his ceiling might be 30 for 38 for 250 and 2 touchdowns, right? That might be his ceiling. I think that's kind of where it is. And if you'd have told me 3 years ago that the offense would be the issue for Southern Cal, and that they would have this at quarterback with Lincoln Riley at the helm, I don't even know how I would have been able to answer that fucking statement. He's been a quarterback guy. He's been an offensive guru. They put up points. Defense has always been the problem for Lincoln Riley. He legit just doesn't recruit defense. We've heard that from several people that he just tells his defensive guys to go find people and bring them in. He has no interest on the defensive side of the ball. Yet this offense, with the playmakers that you mentioned, not good. And the quarterback position, but also you mentioned it. Kudos to Minnesota being able to swarm to the ball and gang tackle and keep them from making plays after the catch is definitely a big plus when you're playing a team like Southern Cal.
Yep.
Baylor, Iowa State. Iowa State holds serve. Miami, Cal. Boy, you're up 25 points in the 3rd quarter at home as a big dog, and you've got an opportunity to make a statement win your first year in the ACC. Just imagine that feather in Cal's cap in year 1 in the ACC. Miami, a team who several people think is a national title contender, who a lot of people think is a playoff contender. You had them on the ropes, and you let them off the hook. To quote the wonderful post game, we had them, and we let them off the hook. We knew they are who we thought they were. That Denny Green, rest in peace. Epic post-game conference, and that's what Cal had, man. They had them, let them off the hook. And we talked a bit earlier this week. I'm gonna give you the floor a little bit about Cam Ward, because he seems like he just doesn't care early in games, and then he's relying on kind of being able to turn it on late in games. They can't keep doing that, can they?
No, that is not a recipe for success whatsoever. it gets ugly early for Michigan, yes, but for Miami, the last
Michigan's
couple
taking
weeks,
another stray.
yeah, right. Fuck the Big Ten. But no, I mean, you're right. 25 points at home, you can't blow that game. We saw another like miraculous play from Cam Ward late though to avoid a sack and throw the ball down the field. Last week it was him avoiding a sack and throwing like a little two-handed shuffle pass. Like he has all the talent in the world to win these games. He just has to lock in early. There's one play I really want to highlight though that I think kind of cost them the game, and it wasn't like a turnover or anything for Cal. It was the last possession of the game before their interception that sealed the game. They had a 3rd and 7 at their own 47 coming out of the 2-minute warning. So like you're winning. You're up 6 at this point. You're coming out of the 2-minute warning. It's 3rd and 7. You're thinking 4-down territory. Let's put this game away. They get a fucking false start coming out of the 2-minute warning, like in your home stadium, and it backs them up to 3rd and 12. And they have to punt, and that's when Cam Ward goes down and scores the winning touchdown. Right, like pre-snap penalties on offense will kill your teams. Like that's a sign of a team that like I don't know if the moment got too big for them or what. Like because I thought their quarterback played well. I didn't think that like. Obviously, the false start's not on him, but like I didn't think that he's the one that cost them that game. They're another team that kind of went into like a shell offense, stopped being super aggressive in the second half. But like that pre-snap penalty on the 3rd and 7, where you're 100% thinking 4-down territory because you're near midfield, you're coming out of the 2-minute warning. They probably had 2 play calls in, right? Like so you run your third down play, and then you hurry back to the line and run a 4th down if you don't get it. Like the 5-yard penalty there just absolutely kills them. And then their defense, which, was suspect all day, played really well in the first half, even like into the 3rd quarter. But you got to understand that you're playing Miami and they're explosive, and Cam Ward is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Like the offense has to recognize the situation. You can't have that 5-yard penalty. And that play right there, in my opinion, was the one that cost them that game, was that pre-snap penalty.
Yeah, it's killer. It's killer. It's in a bad spot. Put yourself behind the sticks, behind the 8 ball against the favorite. You can't give them any life when you got an opportunity like that, for sure.
Also, on that game, quick shout out to Reese Davis, the pro of all pros, dude. That was a late night game. I'd come from an open bar wedding. I was at the house, and I turned that game on because I turned off the South Carolina game to turn on this game because I saw the comebacks happening, right? And I turned the audio on and I was like, who the fuck is calling this game? And my God, that man.
He was finishing up hours 14, 15, and 16.
Yep. Game day at 6 a.m. and then got called in last minute to call it. So shout out to Reese.
Pro's pro, man.
Yeah,
Pro's
he's the best.
Pro.
He's the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, well, that wraps up the top 25 for the week. Off the board a little bit. I'm going to shout out the service academies, homie. Yep. Because we've got 2 of them that are undefeated in the American Athletic Conference. And Navy's 5-0, Army's 5-0. Army's 4-0 in the conference. They played 4 conference games in the first 5 weeks of the season, or 6 weeks, but 5 games of the season. Funny quirk about the scheduling in the American Athletic Conference and kind of how this could work out. Army and Navy could play back-to-back weeks. And mind you, the conference championship could be the first of those 2 games. So if Army and Navy both go undefeated throughout the season, they always play the very last game of the quote-unquote regular season, but it's after conference championships. The Army-Navy game, it's the standalone. They get the week between conference championships and when bowl season actually starts. Army and Navy could play in the American Athletic Conference Championship, and then the following week play the battle for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, which would be very, very interesting. But it is awesome to see that right now Army and Navy are combined 10-0 on the season. Really cool to see with the service academies. Talk to me about Tulane, bud. Did they cover again this weekend?
I
by
think
a lot.
So.
They covered by a lot.
Yeah, they scored like 70, right? Yeah. They
did what Tulane does.
that should put them at. I think they're like 4-1 against the spread. I think this doesn't.
I think
Last
that's the right
week-
number because they are. Or no, I think they're 5-1 against the spread because they played 6 games.
They are. No, just show me Tulane's page, please. I don't want the game. I would like Tulane. I got it right here. I promise. Maybe I don't have it.
We need the D-Gen stat, not.
I know. They are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 against the spread. 5 and 1.
Right.
Yeah.
The only one they didn't hit was Oklahoma, right? 'Cause they had the turnover late that shifted that. It was. I think that was the only one they didn't hit.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Good deal.
It's funny you mentioned Tulane. Navy has to host Tulane actually later this year.
Yep.
So I don't know what the spread's. The spread is not out for that game. I tried to get like a look ahead line. I couldn't find one. But Tulane and Navy do play, and then Army obviously plays Notre Dame as well as Navy. They play Notre Dame also. But like,
Yep.
you know, tough that Navy could get a loss there against my Green Wave.
All right. Any others off the board? Week 6 you want to chat about? Before we shift?
Nebraska's cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
Oak State's apparently bad. This is somebody I heard the question posed today to Ari and Andy, the On 3 guys who I like a lot. They were like, man, is it time for Oklahoma State to move on from Mike Gundy? And they were like, no, of course not, because next year he's going to win the Big 12 because there will be zero expectations on the team whatsoever. This is what happens when you have expectations.
You don't handle expectations in Stillwater.
Exactly, right? So then next year he's going to obviously win the conference.
Yeah. God, he's such an institution there too.
Yeah.
It'd be hard.
Also,
to see someone else at the helm there.
Oh, it'd be. I mean, he's only 40. Like, you can't fire him.
Right. He's still young.
Yeah. But Texas Tech beating Arizona. What the fuck is? I don't understand what Arizona's deal is. That you beat
I don't know
Utah.
what happened, man. They aren't explosive on offense at all this year. It seems
crazy. It's crazy. Jetfish, come back, bud.
Yeah, right. They miss him.
Maybe if Afita's just not tall enough, that could be the problem. I cannot relate, but it could be his deal.
As a tall king.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's shift gears into week 7, man. Oh, actually, I take that back. I have a question for you.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot because we didn't talk about this. I have to ask you, how much does it take away from this weekend that none of the teams that lost are out of the playoff race?
A lot.
It sucks, doesn't it? It sucks.
Yes.
In a way, it sucks.
So you're correct in your statement. However, the Tennessee loss would not have mattered either because Georgia has a loss, Alabama has a loss.
Yeah.
Texas A&M has a loss. Missouri would then have a loss. Like so yes, in a vacuum, none of the games matter. However, because
other circumstances.
because of like we're probably looking at a one-loss champion coming out of the SEC anyways.
Yeah.
Which in the previous 4-team iteration would have been automatic. Anyway. Exactly. So like, I don't care as much that these games don't matter because the other games happened. You know what I'm saying?
It softens the blow.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it's all we're back to even playing field at this point. Is how I feel in the SEC.
Yeah. All right. I like it. All right, moving on. Week 7. We come out the gate with Utah, Arizona State tomorrow night, Friday night. Neither of us think Friday night's going to get weird for Utah. I think, for me, this is just much more about it. I just think the talent disparity between Utah and Arizona State is big enough. 3.5 feels like a very small number, but I also understand it's Friday night. It's down in Tempe.
I got something for you.
You got something. I see that. I see that look on your face.
This line has moved to 6.5 because
since I put this together,
because Cam Rising is starting.
Oh, I missed that announcement.
Yeah.
Oh,
I looked it up before I got on. I said I need to know. Well, before I sent you my picks.
He's back.
Yep. But that means the line has moved to 6.5.
Yeah.
Because I was going to hammer it at 3.5.
I should have hammered it earlier today. Damn it.
Yep.
Now I got to lay a touchdown. Shit.
Yeah. I'm probably still going to lay it.
That's great. I missed that news before the show. But that's fantastic. Also, how much do you think that has to do with the fact that they lost last week?
A lot. a lot.
We talked about it, 2 weeks ago? I think we talked about it that, like, as long as Isaac Wilson kept winning, we might not see Cam Rising until it happened. And lo and behold,
here he
Cam
comes.
Rising's playing.
Yeah, he's playing this weekend.
Well, our pick feels a lot more safe now that he's playing.
Yeah.
We got Bama, South Carolina, and man, I mentioned it earlier. I texted you earlier about it. How'd you guys land 2 consecutive weeks against SEC teams coming off bad losses? Because you had Ole Miss coming off the rotten egg they laid against Kentucky, and now you got Bama coming off a loss to Vandy, where they've had to listen to it all week. Diego Pavia's taking his victory lap, just giving them locker room material. Like, oh boy.
You know what makes it even more fun, Gary, is I'll do you one better.
Oh.
We got Ole Miss coming off a loss. We have Alabama coming off the loss this week. And then next week, we get to play number 18 Oklahoma coming off a loss in the Red River game in Norman. There is a reason South Carolina had the number 2 hardest schedule in the country going into the season, and it is because of this. And then the next week, we get to host Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Like,
it's tough.
Yeah, so South Carolina is bad. Dowell Loggins might be the worst play caller ever. We scored 50 points against Akron. Granted, it's Akron. I got it. We scored 50 points with a backup quarterback against Akron. We had a bye week and then scored 3 points against an Ole Miss team who lost at home to Kentucky, whose quarterback looked like fucking Peyton Manning, who we made sit out. We forced Bob Stoops to bench his quarterback. And he looked like fucking Peyton Manning against the Ole Miss secondary. And we scored 3 points. Now, Kentucky has better receivers than does South Carolina. South Carolina's receiving core is fucking awful.
It's pretty bad.
They get no separation.
How did that happen?
I wish I knew. Our best receiver is Mazeo Bennett, who's a true freshman. Like, I guess Josh Simon, the tight end, he's good. I'll give you he's good. But hey, Dowell Loggins, this is a message just for Dowell Loggins. Every single time you take the field in a football game, every single time, no matter what, every single time you play a football game, you have the most explosive athlete on the field in number 8, Nick Harbor. I get that he's not a great receiver. I understand that. There's this play that you can run called a jet sweep.
Just get the fucking ball in his hands.
Just give him the fucking football. He's the best athlete on the field. May not work in the NFL. Got it. Don't care. This is college football,
right?
Where the best athletes dominate the game. Ryan Williams is a freak of fucking nature at 17 and is dominating at Alabama. He's 6'4", 6'5". Throw it up to him. I don't know. Maybe he can out-jump somebody. Line him up at tight end. He's not going to get chipped. He's 240 pounds and runs like a fucking gazelle. Give him the ball. Also, I didn't appreciate that they took Rocket Sanders off the injury report. They're like, no, good to go. Dude didn't come into the 3rd possession of the game and had like 4 or 5 carries. Just sit him out, dude. He was ineffective. I just sit him out. We need him for the long stretch of the season. It's painful to watch them play on offense. I had so much fun watching them play against Kentucky. That was an awesome game. They were calling plays for their freshman tight end, Michael Smith, who I had never even heard of He was apparently a 4-star recruit. Like, there are guys on this team that can make plays. I know that. I know that there are guys on this team that can make plays. Probably not at receivers, which is okay. And our fucking offensive coordinator is like a 2-time failed retread in the NFL. What is he doing calling plays at South Carolina, man? Get him out of. He feels like a guy that was on the Will Muschamp staff that just shit the bed in Columbia. Like, I don't understand the play calls. I truly do not get it. I can sort of understand if you're like, hey, Sellers is coming off a high ankle thing. We want to keep him safe. Like, don't run it with it. He's the best fucking player on offense, man. A healthy Rocket Sanders is better than him, but Rocket wasn't healthy. So we got to do something. Get Sellers outside. Let him move. The play calling is baffling to me. To score 3 points was coming off a bias, just unacceptable. And now we have to go to Tuscaloosa to play an Alabama team that just lost to Vandy. Like, we haven't seen a quarterback like Milroy this year. Jackson Dart is phenomenal. He was my Heisman pick going into the year. The Ollie Gordon thing was a future look ahead. I wanted Jackson Dart at the beginning of the season. Now I think it should be Genty, but whatever. But we haven't seen a quarterback like Milroy. That dude can run backwards and outrun defensive back like DBs and linebackers. Like, he's a freak. We haven't seen a quarterback like that. Now, he hasn't seen a defensive line like ours yet, because our D line is better than Georgia's currently. I don't know how South Carolina scores in this game, though. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm laying the 21. It's a bounce back game at home for Alabama. I feel like they're just going to come in and handle business. They win this game like 35-0. That legitimately feels like what could happen here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Bad timing.
Yeah.
Clemson, Wake Forest. Not a whole lot to say about that. Wake Forest is bad. Clemson's been clicking 20.5. They should cover that pretty easily. Mizzou, UMass. I feel bad for UMass because it feels like Mizzou's going to try to run it up a little bit.
Yeah.
27.5 is probably not close. I would guess Mizzou's going to get 50, and UMass might be lucky to get 2 tugs.
Yeah, that game could be ugly.
Yeah. Texas, Oklahoma, big matchup this weekend. We talked Red River. 14.5. I was a little bit surprised when I saw this line. Now, I get it. Texas looks like a national championship contender, a legitimate national championship contender. Oklahoma has been up and down a bit, but that defense has been playing much better. I was a bit surprised by the 14.5. I expected this to be more somewhere between 9 and 12, like maybe 10.5, something like that. But I'm still going to lay the points because I just think Texas is that goddamn good this year. I would be more surprised if Texas doesn't hammer Oklahoma than really anything. I was surprised by the line. I thought Vegas would have the line a little more close to about 10.5, but I wasn't going to get Texas cheap, I guess, this week.
No, not quite. Not quite. Favorites are 6-8-1 against the spread in the last 15 in this game. So I understand like some variance, right? We talked about Dylan Gabriel coming in and winning this game last year against the Texas team that was obviously a national title contender.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel's not walking through that door.
Nope.
It's a true freshman who is supremely talented.
Sure.
He's very good. We don't know. So we know that there are 4 receivers out for Oklahoma. Their 5th, Burks, who is their actual leading receiver on the season. He's listed as questionable for this game. We don't know if he's going to play or not. I don't know that it matters. Quinn Ewers is back, which awesome. Heisman candidate, might win a title this year. If he doesn't play, I'm probably still going to lay the points with Arch Manning.
Right. Because Ewers, for all the accolades of Ewers and the fact that he might be the number 1 pick in the draft next year, he might not be the best quarterback on his roster, right? Like, That's the reality of it. Not saying that Arch is better than Quinn right now. Like, I think I would still, if Quinn was healthy, I'm putting Quinn in. But, like, he might not be the best quarterback on his roster. Yeah, that's the glut of riches that Texas has right now.
Yep. Yeah. I think honestly, Oklahoma's only hope, because Oklahoma's defense is good. So their only hope is that Quinn is like pretty rusty.
Yeah.
They can get like a turnover, maybe 2 in the first half, and really control the game on the ground and keep it close. I think they need a big running game from the quarterback, from Hawkins, if they're gonna win this game. Like he's got to throw for like 200 and then run for like another 85 or something like that. If they really want to keep this game within reach, I think.
Yeah. Nope, I'm with you. I could see Texas getting away 3 touchdowns maybe in this game and just kind of cruising to the finish. If you're Oklahoma, like you mentioned, the turnovers, you got to hope for that. Maybe you're hoping that halfway through the third quarter, you've been able to stifle Texas's offense, that maybe Sark is debating putting Arch back in, because that's a good indication, for your team. But yeah, I just think, well, all the firepower, man. Ewers could be rusty for a quarter and a half, and I think Texas still wins this comfortably.
Yep.
Penn State, Southern Cal coming off the bludgeoning at the hands of Minnesota. Just bully ball against them. I expect Penn State to do similar to them. I understand the line only being 4. It is on the West Coast. It's a different time slot, jet lag, yada, yada, yada. I just don't like Southern Cal. I don't think they're going to score really against Penn State. I probably would have laid up to 8.5 maybe in this game, because I think this is going to be like give me like 23-13, something along those lines. That's what it feels like. Not that I think Penn State, I'm still not a believer, right? They probably end up being a playoff team because they finished the last 6 years as like a top 10 team. But I just don't know that I believe yet that this is different. Despite the fact that I've said this is like the most talented team that James Franklin's ever had, it's still being run by James Franklin. But I just think that they're that much more talented than Southern Cal that it's probably a 10-point game, right? 23-13, something along those lines.
Yeah, we have the battle of the little game coaches here in this weekend.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Like, and then you factor in what James Franklin said in his press conference. Penn State had to ride an hour on a bus to get to the airport to find a strip long enough to take off. Like an hour. Gary, I don't know if you know how long an hour is, but that's 60 minutes.
60 full fucking minutes.
On a bus.
On a bus.
Yeah, like...
This is the first time they've ever gotten on a plane?
It's like, wait, is this the first time you've ever flown out of Happy Valley?
You drive to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I don't understand. It's like, what, do you take 2 planes every time? I don't get... That's the wildest fucking thing I've ever heard him say. He goes, the airport's not big enough. We had to ride an hour on the bus.
I guess.
All right, dude,
you ever coach puddle jumpers to games in the Big Ten? Like,
you ever coach high school football, James? Don't think they take airplanes there. Like that.
3 hours on a bus after school before the game.
Yeah. Welcome, buddy. Welcome. I couldn't believe when he said that. It made me laugh so much.
Yeah. I think the best thing that could have possibly happened for Penn State is the fact that SC lost last week and they're no longer in the top 25.
Oh, true. Now they can win this game. Yeah. You talked about it. Clash of styles, Big Ten football. Like Minnesota is Big Ten. Penn State is Big Ten plus. Yes. Like they're Minnesota on steroids. That's what they are. They have a 2-headed running back room that's incredible. Drew Aller has played very well this year. Not great, but very well. And yeah, Miller Moss. We talked about him earlier. I don't know if he's the guy. He seems limited, to borrow a phrase from you. He seems limited in that offense. If he throws 2 picks in this game like he did last week against Minnesota, it will be a blowout.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Onward, upward, Notre Dame, Stanford. We're both on Stanford in this. 23 just feels like too much for that Notre Dame offense. I also think that Ayamanor, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think he's – what's that?
Ayamanor,
yeah.
Same thing.
However it's pronounced, yeah. I think he's a bit much. He's an NFL wide receiver. He's probably a first-round NFL wide receiver. He's a hell of a playmaker. If he's not day 1, he's day 2. And I just think they're going to keep it close enough. I don't know, I know Notre Dame is familiar with Stanford. This isn't a new thing, but 23 just feels like too many.
Yeah, so you you're familiar with our good friend Brandon King's dollar back offense scheme.
Yeah.
And so Adrian the other day came over, and Adrian's a big Oklahoma fan. We were all talking, and I was like, I can give you 4 guys this year to run your dollar back offense. And I included Riley Leonard in the dollar back offense scheme. For those who don't know what that is you run 5 offensive linemen, you run 2 wideouts, and then you run 4 quarterbacks, all capable of passing, throwing, and running. And you can kind of flex them and do whatever you want, right? Just kind of imagine that. And Riley Leonard, I think, fits great into that because he's an average thrower of the ball and an above average runner of the ball. But what he does not do is score a lot of points with the Notre Dame offense. And 23 is too many points, I think, to cover against a not great Stanford team. But if A.O. Minor has another game like he did last year against Colorado,
single-handedly beat Colorado last year,
drug Travis Hunter into the end zone, catching the ball off his back.
Yep.
I don't see why they can't cover 23 points.
Yep. He beat up Syracuse this year too.
Yep. Yes,
he is capable of taking over games.
Yeah.
They just got to give him a chance. Pitt Cal, and don't look now, but Pitt's fucking 5-0. And I believe last week was their first in-conference win over North Carolina on the road. They look pretty good, and I have to believe Cal is going to be a bit like shell-shocked after the bad loss to Miami, being up so big and having kind of Goliath of the conference on the ropes. Pitt, I think, plays some good ball, but I also think that combine what they're doing with what Cal's coming off of, that's why I'm pretty comfortable laying these points at home with Pitt.
Yeah, so Eli Holston, quarterback at Pitt, is playing incredibly. 15-3 touchdown to interception ratio.
Yep.
He's playing incredibly well as a freshman this year. So credit to Pitt for getting it kind of like the train on the tracks there. I know that Aaron Donald is sitting somewhere smiling his ass off right now. Larry Fitzgerald having a grand old time. I a little bit of credit here though to Cal. That Cal was super high coming off who did they beat? They beat it's either Auburn they beat Auburn, right? And then that's when like the AI memes kind of took over the internet, the woke group in Cal, right? And I'm sure we've all seen the memes on Twitter. They're great. And so they beat Auburn, they beat San Diego State, and then they lose to Florida State after they were talking all this shit. They lose to Florida State. But then credit to them, right, for rallying back, and they had that incredible game against Miami where they blew the 25-point lead, but they still were in that game, right?
They had a 25-point lead.
Exactly, right? So to me, that indicates a team that's mentally tough and is ready to bounce back, right? I do think that Pitt is better than Cal, so I'm still going to lay the 3.5 with Pitt. It's a home game for Pitt. It's a cross-country trip for Cal, but I would not be shocked if Cal covers here, right? That would not surprise me. I'm still going to lay the 3.5, but I see a team in Cal that is mentally resilient enough to pick themselves up off the mat from a deflating loss like they had last week late in the night. But I'm still going with Pitt.
Yeah. All right. Onward to Illinois, Purdue. Not a whole lot here. Illinois continues to be a good team, a surprisingly good team. I don't know that a lot of people had Illinois as this in the Big Ten to start the season. I know the preview they were like 8th, I think, predicted to finish 8th in the conference. This looks like a team that might finish in the top 4-ish in the conference. They're very, very disciplined, very stout. They play Big Ten football, right?
Yep.
And Purdue they are very much in the midst of a down period up there in West Lafayette.
It's been a while since Drew Brees was there.
Yeah.
Illinois coming off a loss to Penn State that really hinged on like 2 plays and a bye week.
Yep.
So I'm all over.
A lot of time to prepare for this one and lick their wounds from the Penn State loss. That like you mentioned, that was a much tighter game than I think the final score even indicates as well.
Yeah.
But
yep.
BYU Arizona, we're both going to lay the points with BYU. Arizona's a bit of an enigma. They seem to have talent on offense, but they're not explosive. We just talked about it a minute ago, losing to Texas Tech. BYU plays really, really like they'll beat you up. They'll beat you up. I mentioned it before the Baylor game earlier this year as well. Like BYU will beat you up a little bit if you let them. They're kind of making some noise there in the Big 12, and I don't know what we're going to get from Arizona the rest of the season. Maybe they're a team that's going to be scrappy and upset somebody here down the stretch, but they look a little bit out of sorts. And you probably hit the nail on the head with the Jed Fish comment that it feels like they really miss him.
Yeah, the BYU quarterback just really stingy with the ball. You know what I'm saying? But no, they BYU's good. They've always got big boys.
Yeah.
They got them again this year. They could lean on teams, and I'm not sure entirely. I guess Jed Fish is the answer because I'm not entirely sure what's up with that Arizona offense.
Yeah, I'm not real sure what to make of it, man. What to make of it. All right, Georgia, Mississippi State. You're going to take the points with Mississippi State. I'm going to lay them with Georgia. I just think it's real bad down there in Starkville. In Athens, I just think the talent gap's too big, but it seems 34 is just too many.
Yeah, you're probably going to win this bet. Georgia off a bye, or excuse me, not off a bye, off a win against Auburn. Yeah, like kind of getting the train back on the tracks. I don't think the Georgia offense is explosive. I just don't. I just don't. Call me crazy. I don't see it. They have good running backs. Their quarterback is good, but I don't know that they have downfield playmakers. And 34 is a lot of points. You could win this game 31-0, and that wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. They're not explosive. It's pretty bad down there. Pretty bad.
How many defensive scores do you need? 2?
I
think 1.
I need 1.
Yeah.
If I get 2, I feel good about the number, but I need at least 1 because I don't know that the offense is going to score 40 points on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's probably fair. Is you need 1 defensive touchdown.
Yeah, I think so. 35. Give me 35 nothing.
Just 5 touchdowns?
Just enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that Mississippi State scores any points. So give me 35 points, Georgia, and we might be cashing that ticket.
Yep.
Tennessee, Florida. Things aren't great down there in Gainesville, and Tennessee's coming off a bad loss. I feel like they are going to be absolutely fucking juiced up and fired up for this game. I probably would lay an alternate line in this one of 20.5. I think they're going to win by 3 touchdowns.
Okay, I'm doing a Google search right now because I don't know the answer.
Oh.
Who is starting for Florida this weekend at quarterback?
Good questions.
Who is starting for Florida at quarterback this weekend? Okay, these are not. Oh, September. That's not helping. None of these are helping. Okay, I don't know who's starting at quarterback for Florida. I don't entirely know that it matters. Tennessee, bounce back game. Big loss to Arkansas. It's at home, Neyland Stadium. We know that place gets rocking. South Carolina has won there. So casual. It's not a big deal. We won a night game there. Do with that information what you will. Recently, so it's fine. But yeah, you're laying the points, right? With Tennessee? Yeah. Okay, that's what I figured.
It's 11 or 15. I'd lay up to 3 touchdowns. 20.5 if I had an alternate line to lay.
Agreed. So again, credit to Andy Staples. He was at the Florida game last week against UCF. And Florida, again, this is all credit to him, but I'll tie it back to Tennessee. He was talking about how UCF was Florida was having trouble getting the defensive play calls in, right? The play clock would be winding down. UCF would be lined up to snap the ball, and Florida would be looking around for the defensive play calls. And the UCF would just kind of wait, which is not typically what you see from a Gus Malzahn offense. But
Weird.
he's like high pace, up tempo stuff, and they don't. For some reason, he doesn't do that with KJ Jefferson. I don't get it. It cost me money in the Colorado game. Fucking run your offense, Gus Malzahn.
Right.
But so my takeaway from him telling that little anecdote is that, like, if there are defensive play call issues in Neyland Stadium Saturday night,
He's gonna beat him up.
Tennessee is not going to sit and wait for you to get your defensive snap, like your play call ready. Nico and Josh Heupel and Sampson are going to snap that fucking ball, and you're going to be standing with your hand over your head like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So
they play at lightning speed.
Yeah. So my options here are either believe that Florida gets that cleaned up on the road in the SEC or lay a bunch of points with Tennessee. You told me which is the smarter option.
Yeah, we're gonna lay them points.
Yeah.
Then we got what felt like it was originally going to be like the matchup of the weekend, and it still might be. You mentioned Oregon still got playmakers. Dylan Gabriel is still a guy that I think we can hang our hat on. Ohio State goes up to Eugene, and in year one of Oregon in the Big Ten, we get a big matchup. Ohio State's laying 3 points here, which isn't much, but it is. They're on the road, heading to the West Coast. Ohio State's first real big road trip in the new Big Ten, the new version of the Big Ten, heading to the West Coast. I'm at the point where I don't know that I can trust Oregon, and if I lose this, if Oregon shows up this weekend and proves me wrong, that'll be awesome because I expected this to really be a knockdown, drag out fight. And if Oregon or Ohio State wins this by less than a field goal, it means it's gonna be an awesome game, right? And I'm here for it. I just don't know that Oregon has it figured out yet in week 7. It just feels every week like there's just something not quite right on the offensive side of the ball, especially. I think they're fine on defense, but on the offensive side of the ball, I fear that this game could be like 20-6 because I just is Oregon's offense going to struggle? So I'm going to lay the points with what I feel like is the known commodity. I don't love the quarterback play that Ohio State's gotten this year so far. I think it's been up and down, but I trust the two-headed monster at running back. I trust that they've got enough playmakers on the outside, and I trust that defense. And for those reasons, I'm going to lay the 3 points because I feel like I check more boxes with the Buckeyes than I do with the Ducks. Now, if I'm wrong, it's going to make for a great game, I think.
Yep. So I understand that we do picks against the spread on the show, and I very much enjoy that. But we also try to sprinkle in some football knowledge, right? Not just gambling stuff. That being said, Oregon is 1-4 against the spread this year. Yeah, and Ohio State is averaging on defense, or how should I say this? Ohio State's average opponent score is 6.8 points per game through the first 5 weeks of the season. Now, they have not played very many good teams,
especially not offensive juggernauts.
Exactly. So I get that. Now, you mentioned the two-headed running back in Ohio State, or at Ohio State, right, with Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, Virginia kid, shout out 757. What's up? Not a big deal. Casual. It is what it is. You also mentioned not having great quarterback play from Ohio State. If I could jog your memory back a few weeks, there was one Ashton Jeanty who played very late at night in Autzen Stadium and just about single-handedly beat this Oregon team by himself.
Yep.
It required 2 special teams touchdowns from Oregon, a punt return for a touchdown and a kickoff return for a touchdown by the Oregon Ducks to win that game over a ranked, not at the time, but currently ranked, a Boise State team with who I believe is the Heisman frontrunner. No disrespect to Travis Hunter, but
the odds say the same thing.
Yeah,
he's at like plus 240, and I think Hunter's live odds is like plus 350. So
yeah,
you're
2-horse race.
You're speaking Vegas's language.
Yeah. So all of that being said, they have a 2-horse running back rather than a 1-horse running back, and as great as Genty is, I think you probably want to have the 2 guys that are home run hitters rather than the 1 guy. That's just the running back group.
Yeah.
Then we bring in the good quarterback, who's not great. He's a very good college quarterback.
Yep.
And then and I'm going to say Will because it's Rogers or
Howard.
It's Howard. It's Howard. Yeah, Howard. Rogers plays at Washington.
Yep.
Both in the Big Ten, so whatever. So Will Howard, the very good college quarterback, and then you factor in J.J. Smith, who is the number 1 recruit in the country.
Who's probably going to be the Marvin Harrison Jr. top 5 wide receiver in a couple of years.
I have heard, there have been rumblings on the internet, that he is the most talented wide receiver to ever play at Ohio State.
That's a collective of wide receivers that includes like Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah.
Like you got just some unbelievable guys that have played at Ohio State at the wide receiver position. Not to mention like 5 of the top 30 guys in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson. Like that's all within the last like 6 years.
Right.
And people are saying he's not the greatest because he doesn't have the moments yet, but he's the most talented wide receiver ever to come through that program. And then you throw in All-American Emeka Egbuka on the other side.
And oh, by the way.
Yeah. And for my money, the best defense in college football.
Yeah.
Like at least the best back 7 in college football.
Yeah.
So for all of those reasons, I will lay the 3 with Ohio State. They are my pick to win the national title this year. I'm going to stick with it. I still like Oregon. I think that Oregon is good. I don't think they're national title good, but I still think that Oregon is a playoff team. And this could be this could be a touchdown game. This could be a 10-point game, and it wouldn't shock me. Like Oregon could still have this game within reach. You also could convince me otherwise. You made a good point. It could be a blowout to Ohio State, and that would not shock me as well. But I lean more closely to the 5 to 12 point range than I do the 17 to 25.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ole Miss LSU. Ole Miss goes down to Death Valley. 3.5 points. I'm a little bit surprised that spread's as small as it is. I understand it's in Baton Rouge. I understand LSU is a talented team. They've got some guys down there, but I think Ole Miss got its wake-up call against Kentucky, and I think probably the rest of the way this season we're going to see Ole Miss that we talked about before the season that we thought they could be, and I picked them as a lock for the playoff. I picked them to win the SEC. I think the wake-up call against Kentucky was maybe exactly what they needed because they hadn't played anybody to that point. And I think they got their bell rung against Kentucky and it woke them up. I think they cover this pretty easily. If I had to put a number on it, 12 to 15, they probably win this game by 2 touchdowns.
So I will not be betting this game. I will not have money on this game. This was the most difficult line for me to pick this week. I waffled. Yeah, I waffled hard back and forth. I told you probably 3 weeks ago that I was not going to bet against Ole Miss. I bet against them last week, and I haven't financially recovered from that yet. Yikes. I also said I wasn't going to bet against Miami, and then I did the last 2 weeks, and I'm still not financially recovered from that. But so I thought very long and hard about this game. I know that Harold Landry is not playing for LSU. He's out for the year. They lost another one running back. I think the offensive side of the ball would be fine. Gary, where are they playing this game?
I was getting ready to ask you the question. How much of your comments right now have to do with the fact that it's a night game in Baton Rouge?
Yes.
Against those Tigers.
Yes. I did not get to this in my South Carolina portion. I need to go and look up the exact number of players that Ole Miss put on the injury availability list this week. because it had to be 37 because they had 16 fucking guys go down. Every fucking first down that South Carolina got last week, well, here's an injury, including the defensive lineman that scored 2 touchdowns for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just – I love Lane Kiffin. I get it. Play the system 100%. But fuck, don't do it against my team, dude. Every first down, there's an injury for Ole Miss. Yep. Like, God. Okay, so that injury concern for real. We don't know if Trey Harris is playing in this game. His listed is questionable. The availability came out last night. He has 56 catches. Or 50 – it's either 52, 54, or 56. Somewhere. He has 50-plus catches on the season, the most in college football.
Yeah.
Juice Wells is number 2 with 17. Again, these are some of the positives that I didn't get to in the Alabama portion of the South Carolina stuff. So we basically shut them down in the second half after Trey Harris got hurt. Our defense played well in the second half. It was our offense that really let us down. We gave up 2 fluky touchdowns early in the game because we gave him short fields or whatever, and that offense is very, very good. And Trey Harris had like 3 for 80 in the first half, and then he got hurt, and their offense did nothing. I don't know if he's playing in this game. We will not know until Saturday. We're making this pick on a Thursday. So you're telling me that Trey Harris, the number 1 receiver in college football, may not play, and it's a night game in Baton Rouge, and LSU's offense is pretty good. I'm gonna take the 3.5, and I'm gonna run with it, and I'm not gonna feel good about it, but I'm also not gonna put actual cash on this game, so that makes me feel a little bit better.
All right. Iowa State, West Virginia. I'm gonna preface this by saying I would have taken West Virginia money line in this game. I'm going to have West Virginia money line on a ticket this weekend. I like Iowa State. I like what they've done so far this year, but I also like West Virginia at home. That's a pretty raucous environment. They don't have anything else to fucking do in Morgantown except go cheer for the fucking Mountaineers. I think West Virginia is a sneaky good team in the Big 12. I think that they've got a lot of offensive talent. I like their quarterback. I think he's a guy that's going to start to get on the national radar. I think he's going to be on the NFL radar here in the next couple of years. I like what he does. He's poised. He's got a pretty good arm. It's a new era in the NFL as well. He's not your prototypical 6'5", 240 guy, but I think he's going to start to turn some heads. But this feels like a gut pick. It really does. In Morgantown, if this was in Ames, I'd probably lay 6 or 7, but in Morgantown, I'm going to have a money line pick on this. This is my upset. This is one of my 2 upsets of the weekend. I actually have another one coming up here in a minute.
Oh, I bet I can guess. I bet I can guess.
I bet you can.
Yeah. So this is another one that I kind of waffled with, not as much as Ole Miss LSU, but yeah, I've been to games in Morgantown. I've been to a night game. I've been to an afternoon game. It's raucous, like you said. The stadium isn't huge, but they get loud there. They show out for their Mountaineers. I just think that Iowa State is more disciplined and probably more talented. I like West Virginia. They're fun. Garrett Green, our online dynasty, College Football 25, we saw what he did last year. Like,
won a Heisman.
Yeah. No, okay, he did not win a Heisman.
Oh, no, he didn't. You're right, he didn't.
Nick Harbor won the Heisman.
He won the Quarterback of the Year award.
Yes, Quarterback of the Year. I agree that he's very good. He's one of those guys. I'm not sure he's an NFL guy, but to me, he's one of those, like, he's the perfect college quarterback, right? Like 5'11", 200, can move a little bit, throw on the run, hits guys downfield. Extremely fun. So with this, the line, the 3.5 shows to me is that neutral site. This is a pick'em, so I'll treat it as a pick'em. And I like Iowa State on a neutral field. I would not shock me if it goes the other way. Having money line West Virginia, not a bad ticket. If you win that, doesn't shock me one bit, truthfully. But I lean Iowa State here.
Yeah. This is a good question, and I haven't heard much yet in terms of games being actually impacted. Now, I I didn't go down the list of teams in the path in Florida that are either on the road or on a bye week. So in transparency, I don't know yet exactly who would be impacted by it, but I do know that last week we had a game get flat out canceled with Helene going through Boone, North Carolina,
Yep.
and just wreaking the devastation that they are still recovering in Appalachia, and it's devastated. I can assume it's going to be very similar in Florida because
Where?
Appalachia,
Appalachia?
is that how it's pronounced? I've
Yeah.
always heard Appalachia.
As someone who's from there, it's
All right.
Appalachia.
Appalachia. All right, you got me.
So I was so confused there for a second. It was like,
All right.
what is he talking about?
I don't know. I don't know why I've heard that before.
You
learn something new every day.
Yeah, I'm here for you, buddy.
But I don't know yet quite what the impact is going to be, because I do know that there are areas in Florida that they don't expect to get power back for a couple of days. So the likelihood is that any of those games that were in that path, now teams that could be impacted by this, USF. I didn't look at their schedule, but they play in the Tampa area.
They're moving to Orlando this week. I just Googled that. They're moving the game to Orlando.
Okay. Because that was the other team I was going to say is maybe UCF potentially, because they play in the Orlando area.
Yep.
And then you look at maybe Miami would have had some, but I think they're on a bye this week, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So it ended up, so USF is moving their game to Orlando. So that's how the teams, at least this week in the state of Florida. Now, again, I mentioned last week, Appalachian State had a game that they just flat out canceled in Boone. It was a non-conference game, but Boone was so devastated, they just said, we're not even going to try to reschedule or anything like that. So, different tenor. USF has an opportunity to move to Orlando because I think UCF is on the road this week, or they might even be on a bye. But there you go, going to Orlando. This does happen, right? We've seen this in the past where games get moved. We've even seen, I forget who it was, but I do remember a time when I think it was it around Katrina, or maybe it was, I don't know, one of the big hurricanes that devastated the Gulf Coast. One of the teams in the Gulf Coast actually moved a game on the road that was a home game and played on the road at their opponent's stadium. So they do make these kind of moves. It does look like, fortunately, right, the Hurricane Milton wasn't quite as bad as projected as well. So, like, on that side of things, it seems like teams aren't necessarily dealing with the same sort of devastating effects that we thought they might be. But you've got a game that's getting moved, right? South Florida's moving their game to Orlando. So good question, though. Good question, because that's a reality.
Also, shout out. I should have seen this. I was covering. I have a lot of close friends that live in the St. Pete area, so I was following the hurricane pretty closely, and I should have seen this coming out. But FAU, who plays, shout out Lane Kiffin, FAU.
Yep.
They play in Boca Raton. Yep, they're offering complimentary tickets this weekend to Hurricane Milton evacuees.
Awesome.
So if you evacuated to the Boca Raton area, go down Saturday.
Not a bad area to evacuate to.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully your house is okay, but boy, are you really struggling right now.
Yeah. Golf courses fucking everywhere.
Yeah, right. But head on over to FAU.
Golf cart community.
Oh, it's the dream. As someone who currently lives in a golf cart community, I would love to live in that golf cart community.
Yeah, right. Yeah, golf cart envy.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Ole Miss, LSU, West Virginia, Kansas State, Colorado. You're laying the points here. I'm going to take the 3.5. This really has to do for me, and this is my second upset of the week. I am taking a money line. I will have Colorado money line ticket this weekend. This comes down to the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Kansas State, and I think that Colorado is going to be able to score with Kansas State if Kansas State gets the offense going against Colorado. It's at home as well. If this thing, just like with West Virginia, if they were in Ames, I'd probably lay a touchdown for Iowa State. If Colorado was playing down in the Little Apple this weekend, I probably would lay 6.5 for Kansas State. being on the road up there in Boulder, different environment. The Jekyll and Hyde nature of Kansas State has me a little scared. I'm going to take a chance here. I'm going to chase a little juice, and I'm going to place a Colorado money line bet. But for this purpose, I'm going to take the 3.5 points with Colorado. I just think the talent's there, and Kansas State's a little bit up and down. We'll see. If we get good Kansas State, I'm going to lose bad.
Yeah, true. Very true. We sort of we've talked about it all year long because publicly I have the ticket for the under 5.5 for Colorado. This is a game I need Colorado to lose.
Need it.
We've gone over their what at the beginning of the season looked like a gauntlet second half of the season that has suddenly
tempered.
Yeah, the Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Kansas, by the way, what a fall from grace they have experienced there. Holy, they cannot wait for football or for basketball season. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Bill Self might go try to coach the football game.
Oh.
But no. So I still believe that Colorado is not a very good football team. I have to believe that. I watched almost all of their games last season. I have watched basically all of their games this year. They look the exact same to me. The only difference is they are now attempting to run the ball more in the last 3 weeks than they have in the first, 9 games of the Deion Sanders era. They still, even though they are running the ball more, their explosives are reliant on Shedeur Sanders buying time and making something happen with his legs, not just to run the ball, but to throw the ball down the field to Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr.
Yep.
And their defense is still not great. We talked about it. I mentioned it with the Tennessee preview. The Gus Malzahn offense is, for some reason, bad in Orlando. So they were able to kind of stifle KJ Jefferson in that Gus Malzahn offense. But Avery Johnson is not KJ Jefferson, right? KJ Jefferson, very big body, able to run through guys. Avery Johnson will run around you. He will run through you. He will put you in a blender. He will juke you, and then he will throw the ball 15 yards down the field. Right? He's electric. I said it to you multiple times this year. I need to see whether he can pass the ball. I know he can throw the ball, but I needed to see whether he can pass the ball. And he proved to me that he can at least be a serviceable passer of the ball, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that this defense, we talked about it a long time ago. Deion Sanders loves this defensive line. They asked him about the O-line. He talked about the defensive line. They asked him about the rest of the team. He talked about the defensive line. He loves this defensive line. This defensive line has not seen Avery Johnson.
No.
He is electric. He's so fast. And I think that K-State is going to be able to run the ball on this Colorado defense and kind of bully them and push them around. And I think that K-State controls this game. And I don't know that it ends up being super close. But you said the Jekyll and Hyde version of this K-State. Which one are we going to get?
Yeah.
I'm banking on the good version.
I'm betting on the bad one.
All right, bud. It's you versus me. Here we go.
And we close out the week with Ashton Genty going down, and he might hit the beach early down there and get some surfing in the second half. 20.5 doesn't feel like enough. I bet they're up by 35 at half and coast to a maybe 38 or 42 point win in this game. Hawaii is their game, but unless the Boise State boys and they go down there and get distracted by the hula girls and all the beaches and all the beautiful scenery down there in Hawaii, they don't have anything for Boise State. Boise State's so goddamn good. This is another one. I said I would lay an alternate line with Tennessee. I probably would lay an alternate line on this one up to 34.5.
Oh, I was going to say 28, but all right.
I think I would go up to 34.5. I just think Boise State has too many horses. No pun intended up there, Broncos fans, but I just think they have too many horses in Hawaii. I just don't. Unless you get a couple garbage time touchdowns from Hawaii, I think it's going to be like a 35 or 42 point game.
I think you can do that. Let me see. Can I get?
I don't know how far you can go on
alternate. Here we go. Hold on. I got you.
Can you go that high?
Boise. What'd you say? 34.5?
34.5?
34.5 puts you at plus 370.
Ooh, Okay.
That's a pretty little number.
That's good juice.
That's a pretty little thing, and I ain't talking about the hula girls.
I might float that one out there on my ticket this weekend then.
Yeah. No,
Put my money where my mouth is.
It may as well, right? I mean, you're going to lose your Colorado bet. You may as well lose the Boise one while you're at it. No, but I agree with you. It could very easily be 28 at halftime, and Genty sits down again.
Yeah,
like he's going to do. This is what I envision. 65-yard touchdown, runs into the tunnel. We see a video of him kicking off his cleats, and he's just on the beach.
He's on the beach.
Pads still with the football. He's just on the beach.
He takes his jersey off, but leaves the shoulder pads on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
surfboard.
It's an NFL Street version 2 scene of him like back flipping off a coconut tree.
What a reference! I love
it. That's what we get.
Love it. All right, well, that brings us to the conclusion of our top 25 games this week. As we do every week, man, you got anything off the board for us?
Yeah, Arkansas State, Texas State.
Okay.
If you're looking for points, way off the board. But the reason is this is the highest over under the week, and it's set at 65.5.
That's gonna be fun.
So if you're looking for points, plus the Texas State quarterback, I believe, came from JMU, McLeod, I think. Yeah. So just shout out Virginia kid. But yeah, so if you're looking for points, looking for something fun to throw on the TV, Arkansas State, Texas State should be up and down, high flying.
We're gonna put some points up in the Sun Belt. Woo!
Yeah, for real. Special credit or special shout out, I guess, to your boys, Fresno State and Wazoo. They're at 60.5. So a couple of games there in the afternoon or in the evening slate. If for some reason you don't want to watch Ohio State and Oregon and Ole Miss LSU, go watch some points. Because that's where they're gonna be. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. Tulane on a bye week too. We don't have the easy money, the guaranteed win this week, huh?
Yeah. That's an unfortunate thing.
It's a tough one.
We do have JMU playing right now, though.
Oh yeah,
at Bridgeport.
We are what 5 days into the 57 straight.
Yep,
it's a good feeling.
Something like that. Yeah.
Got NFL action tonight as well. So yeah, those small schools make it fun.
Yeah. Shout out South Carolina, baby. Them small schools. The little programs.
The little engine that could.
Yeah. One more shout out. If you want to take a nap during the early slate of games this week, Washington plays at Iowa. So if you want to get like an early afternoon nap in, there you go.
443 runs in that game, 17 points.
Yep. The other Will Rogers will be playing in that game.
Yes. He'll be handing it off a lot.
Yep. I was talking to somebody yesterday, a Washington fan. I have not rubbed it into my only Michigan fan friend's face that they lost, but I was talking to a Washington friend, and I was like, he was talking about the week prior. Was it who did they lose to? Oh, Rutgers, where they missed the 3 field goals and they played just poorly. And I was like, yeah, man, you guys lost 60% of your roster and your coach who took you to a national title team. But you brought in Jed Fish, who we saw do wonderful things at Arizona. I was like, y'all are going to be fine.
You're going to be fine.
You just beat a top 10 team, a pseudo top 10 team in Michigan. You have a good head coach. You're in a power conference. But you're in a power conference. You guys are going to be all right. Washington will be fine.
They'll be fine.
They have great kits. Washington does.
Jed Fish. All signs point up.
Yep.
All right, Bob. Well, hey, good episode for Bentley and the rest of us here at Backyard Sports. This has been another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. Looking forward to a big weekend. We talked about October 12th before the season even started. October 12th is finally here in 48 hours. We have top 25 action tomorrow on a Friday night. Utah against Arizona State. Cam Rising's back, so you got that to look forward to as well. The number has shifted, so we're going to have to lay a bigger number now. But I think I'm still going to lay it with Cam Rising back. But anyway, we'll see y'all next week back at our regularly scheduled time. Appreciate the flexibility this week. I had some adult responsibilities at work that precluded. Yeah, I know. We hate those, but precluded me from being available yesterday. Dad, and even though you're a Cowboys fan, Diggs, we appreciate you checking in as well. We'll see y'all next week. We are out.